I feel like people are so offended these days and they let it weigh on them so much. And honestly, if you can't change it or do anything about it, if it's not going to affect you, like, be passionate about it, but don't let it bring you down. Like, there's so many people that just get so worked up about everything in the news, and like, why? Like, go home and be with your family, or go home and be with your animals, or go home and just cook yourself a good dinner. Like, don't obsess over things that you can't control and things that you can't change. And if something offends you, then don't listen to it and don't watch it, and find something that doesn't offend you and just be happy.
Hi, I'm Patrick Parker, and you're listening to the Becoming Who You Truly Are podcast, a show that helps us all live more authentic lives. This week, I'm joined by Courtney Draughon, and we'll be talking about her journey from a 90s kid in Orange County, California, to her current life in Doha, Qatar. I'm sure that by the end of this hour, we're all going to be inspired by Courtney's story, which will prove that someone who comes from nothing can be successful. Hey, Courtney, how are you?
Hey, Patrick, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well. Thanks so much for doing this. And I was just in Qatar actually a couple of weeks ago visiting you and my nephew, who's really more like my little brother. And I had a really good time. I hope y'all did too.
It was a blast. I had so much fun.
And it's funny because you and Davon have been married for a while, but in a way, it was the first time that I've ever met you. I think we met briefly in 2020. I wasn't at your wedding, but I think y'all were engaged at the time. I had gone home to Fort Oaks, North Carolina to visit my family right before I moved to Norway. But the world was so stressful that time, I literally do not remember talking to you. I remember that you were sitting beside Davon, and I remember me and Davon talking, but I don't remember actually talking to you. So in a way, I feel like I met you for the first time last month.
I remember hearing you talk when we were there, and I remember being around you, but I don't think we had like too many conversations.
Yeah, it's also kind of hard to get to know someone for the first time when you're in a big family gathering. There was probably 20 people there or something. So
yeah, there's a lot.
But my impressions of you, I'm just going to embarrass you a little bit. And I'm going to tell you what I thought of you. And then I'm going to ask you what you thought of me when we were in Qatar. But no, my impression of you when we were spending time in Qatar was you are like a peacemaker. You're like a gentle little lamb. And I mean that in a good way. Like, you seem like the person who stays calm. Even if you're freaking out on the inside, you have this calmness on the outside. And that's something that the older I get, the more I come to admire in people, because it's such a rare quality in the loud, assertive/aggressive world that we live in today. So I really appreciated that you brought that to the trip.
Yeah, I feel like that's just been instilled in me my whole life. But for you, you were just a ball of sunshine, and you were so outspoken and fun and adventurous, and not what I pictured at all.
What did you picture?
I just thought you were going to be a lot more conservative, a lot more quiet. I thought we were going to have like quiet dinners and, not get to talk as much as we did.
You mean conservative in my demeanor, like more kind of reserved and...
Yeah, more like what you would expect someone from JoCo to be like. Or
yeah.
How, I guess the rest of the family kind of is, how they're all very, quiet and calm and just very relaxed.
Yeah, Davon's a little more outgoing than the rest of the guys in the family. JoCo, for those who aren't from JoCo, means Johnston County. It's the place that I come from is so small that we don't call it by Four Oaks, the place that I'm actually from. We call it from Johnston County, the county that it's in. So yeah, my dad is much more reserved than I am, and actually Davon's brother is like very, very quiet. But yeah, I broke the mold in many ways. And also I was doing the whole YouTube thing, and that always makes me sort of up my energy level when hi, I'm on YouTube. Yeah. Welcome to Qatar.
Which made it fun.
Okay, so we were in Qatar together, but like myself, you didn't start off as a world traveler. You started off as a young girl in California. So tell us what life was like in Orange County in California.
It was definitely an adventure. So it's not the safest place to grow up. It's definitely not Johnson County where you can just ride your bike down to a peach stand or the Dollar General down the street. It's, just going in my neighborhood. My mom was very, very cautious with everything that I did. So safety was always kind of a concern. Um, but there was always something to do. I mean, we lived minutes from the beach. We lived about an hour, hour and a half from the mountains. I think that's probably one of the only places you can go skiing and lay out on the beach within the same day if you wanted to.
Actually, Oslo's the same way. We literally
Really?
have an ocean in between mountains. But yes, it's a very rare, uncommon place to live somewhere like that. But it's pretty special.
Mhm. It is. But I was probably 10 minutes from Disneyland, another 10 minutes from the Angel Stadium. So whether it was going to the, events that they had there or going to Disneyland on the weekends, my aunt worked there. So we always got free tickets. She got 4 a month. So, between whatever kid wanted to go that month, we could go whenever we wanted. Um, every Friday, Disneyland did this huge firework display, so I got fireworks every weekend. It's probably one of my favorite holidays, 4th of July. But it was just always, always busy. I had a lot of fun with my family growing up. My mom would always kind of try to keep things calm when I was at her house. She was the one that was very structured and organized and clean. And she refers to my dad as like the Disneyland dad because I'd go over there and I'd have no rules and I'd have fun and I'd get dirty and hopped up on sugar. And, um, you know, it was kind of a good balance, I think.
You mentioned earlier that you were sort of put into the peacemaker role, and then you just mentioned that your mom liked to keep the peace. So, do you think that you just popped out into the world as this gentle person, or it was kind of instilled in you by your family? And tell us more about that.
I think it was instilled by my family. I think since my dad's side is so crazy and busy and loud that I kind of harnessed the calm that my mom has. And don't get me wrong, my mom can be pretty wild and crazy just as much as my dad. They were together for a reason. But when it came to me, she was very calm and organized. So I think I took a lot of that and you know, harnessed it within myself. And I think that's why in crazy situations, I'm usually the more calm one. And I'm the one that kind of thinks through like the situation a little bit more. Um, but yeah, I think it was kind of just something I learned and grew into.
I asked that question because I think that people don't give enough reflection into how they're born with certain traits and then their families often either bring it up or temper it down or somewhere in the middle. And I think it's a really important thing to think about, for the listeners, really for anybody. For example, I was born, I think I've always been a pretty actually a quiet person, even though I can really turn on the jazz, like if I'm doing YouTube or if I need to talk in public or whatever. I always love to read, but I've always been super, super creative. And my mom especially really fostered that. So maybe I was like baseline here already compared to like
Mhm.
other people might be here. And then my mom shot it up to the moon with, the opportunities she gave me. So that's why I asked that question. I think it's interesting to think about, and I always like asking people that. So what was life like as a teenager in high school in Orange County? For example, in Johnston County, the worst we could do is drink beer around a bonfire on a Saturday night. Were y'all getting in trouble? Were you a good
I'm,
girl? What was
I'm
happening?
gonna I'm gonna throw you a wrench.
Okay.
So when I was 12, I moved to Georgia with my
Oh,
dad. So I went from eighth grade to 11th grade, being in a similar town to JoCo. But
Okay.
then my senior year, I decided that I wanted to go back home to California, and I did my senior year with the crazy people in
Yeah.
California.
So that was your
Um,
year of Katy Perry partying and everything.
very much. Yeah, I mean, my grad night was at Disneyland. Like
Wow.
it was, yeah, it was awesome. And then right after I graduated, I was still 17. Um, I moved out that summer, and I just lived with friends. Ended up enrolling in college. I got two full-time jobs. I didn't have a car because I was a broke college girl, and you walk everywhere, unless you can find a ride. So that kind of got me into some not great situations because anytime you're walking in any street in California, you're going to get anyone to pull over, honk at you, try to pick you up. It's not safe. It's really not safe. There's a lot of times where I was followed or, like I had to run into McDonald's or something to get away from like a car that was following me. So I did one full semester of that and finally I was like, I need to figure something else out because I'm working two full-time jobs, going to school. I'm, bouncing off my friends' couches. I don't have safety. So I ended up walking into an army recruiter's office, and that's kind of where my life changed.
So I love that you set up this first transformative moment in the way you did because, okay, on the channel, we talk a lot about becoming who you truly are and living a life of authenticity and all of this great stuff. But the theory behind all of that is this guy named Abraham Maslow. He created this human hierarchy of needs and sort of living a life of creativity and authenticity is at the very, very top. But at the bottom is like your basic needs and then safety. Safety is the second rung. So it's like you were somehow innately smart enough to realize, okay, my need for safety isn't being met. And until I get this part met, I can't move forward with my life. So I think that's a really great illustration of that whole model and concept. So tell us about life in, was it the Army that you were in?
So, no, but
No?
that is where my journey started.
Okay.
So, when you walk into most recruiters' offices, it is going to be like Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force all together in their own separate offices. So, me, I just walk into the first one. It's a bunch of Army people saying, "Oh, hey, join the Army." And, they're giving me their, spiel about how great it is. And I was like, okay, but what would I do? And, they kind of gave me some crap answer. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And then I thought about what my interests are. And if I had to be surrounded by something every day, what would it want to be? Like, would I want to see boats all the time or would I want to see airplanes all the time? And I was like, I definitely want to see airplanes all the time. So I went to the Air Force recruiter, and as soon as I walked in, it just felt right. Like the guy's last name was similar to mine. He was, covered in tattoos. It was hilarious. There was another girl in there, I remember, and she looked at me and she's like, how are you so blinged out for like I was not blinged out. I was probably wearing like a necklace and bracelets and something, but she's like, how are you supposed to join the Air Force? I was like, I don't know, but I'm gonna do it.
So she thought you were too she thought you were too much of an uptown girl to join the Air Force.
She was like, you look like you just came from the beach. You got your bracelets on, you got your necklace on, you're wearing pink. Like that is not what the military looks like. And you know, it was after that day.
That's funny because you are not a frou-frou frilly girl. So
But when I was younger, I was like, I would, I was not the sports person or go run person. I was the girly girl. I liked makeup and hanging out with my friends. And I was not the person I am today for sure.
Tell us more about the Air Force. What was it like? How did it change? First of all, basic training. Okay. I don't think I could pass basic training. I'm just going to say that. How hard was the whole basic training thing?
Like you have a lot of hard work in your physical aspect of like running, push-ups, sit-ups, but you're there to learn. Like that's, the most basic thing. It's basic training for a reason. It's not hard unless you make it hard. You're learning about the history, you're learning about you know, your core values and what's going to be expected of you as an airman and not just a civilian anymore. So like a lot of people say, yeah, it's hard, but to me, I didn't think it was hard.
And do they really yell at you and call you bad names like they
Yeah.
do in the movies? They do.
Yeah. I remember, yeah, I remember one morning I was getting breakfast and you have to go down this like long line. It's kind of like almost like a buffet style, but you don't get to choose what you want. Um, so they slapped some granola on my plate, and I get my water because you have to drink 2 cups of water with every meal. So I get my water, I get my granola, yogurt, whatever, and I grab my tray and I start walking, and you have to walk straight, and there's like a line, and all of your leadership sits there, and you have to walk right past them to go to the tables where you can eat. And I remember I was walking straight, and my leader comes up and goes, "Do you really think that granola is going to help you pass your PT test?" And I was like, "Are you calling me fat?" Like, I went into the Air Force weighing 110 pounds. Like I was so skinny. I was tiny. And I just looked at him and I looked at my granola and I was like, I didn't think my PT test was that bad. And I just walked away. But yeah, they yell at you and they'll say some not nice things, but I mean, they can also be really cool and have fun with you too. It just depends on how hard you're going to work.
Oh, I could not have survived in that situation. I would have just cried and said, I want to go home the first time they yelled at me. I know that about myself.
Some people did.
Uh,
No.
okay, so tell us a couple of things that you learned in the Air Force or like how it changed you. For example, I know you went overseas. Give us some different stories from your time in the Air Force.
Well, I ended up joining the maintenance career field on jets. So my first assignment, I went to Vermont, which is like an unheard of assignment for someone like me because it's a guard base and I'm active duty and that just doesn't happen normally. So I get my assignment and I go to Vermont, which I'd never even heard of. It's like the exact opposite of California. Couldn't have put me farther. Um, and just working with all of these men was, nothing that my little 19-year-old self was prepared for.
Were you like the only
Yeah.
woman in the?
I'm typically the only female in any of my shops. Like right now, there's one other female in the overall group that I'm in. And there's no other women on my shift. She's on the opposite shift, so I'm the only female. They actually call me the shop mom. So
I've been in a couple of jobs where I was the only man in a group of one was a team of 5 and another one was there was 20 people and I was the only man. And there are definitely pros and cons, okay, to being in a situation where you're the only one of your gender. But I imagine it's a different experience being the only man versus being the only woman, especially the only woman in a maintenance shop. That sounds very colorful.
yeah, I mean, it can be hard because on one hand, you want to fit in. And then on the other hand, you're like, well, there's still kind of boundaries. Like, you guys can't just say whatever you want in front of me. So, there's always those awkward moments where they're in like the heat of the moment conversations and they look at me and they're like, oh, can you walk outside so we can finish this? And I'm like, well, that just makes it really awkward. Or, just they'll they'll start to talk about something, they'll look at me and they'll just stop, or, just things like that make it a little uncomfortable. I would rather them just keep saying what they were going to say, and then, if I have to stop them, that's different. But then I'm setting the boundaries, not having them set for me. So, that's one thing. Or, being a woman in maintenance, obviously my strength is a lot different than a man's. So, if I'm struggling to get something out or I'm struggling to pick something up, it's always like, at what point do I ask for help? Like, do I push myself and try to show that I'm capable, or do I not push myself and show that I'm capable of asking for help? So I've always had a fine line that I walk in that sense. But it's always very rewarding when I can't get something off that a man can't. Just because it's like, see, I'm not the only one that can't do it. But, there's things like that it's just hard being the only gender.
And I guess there are no like hard and fast rules. I guess you just have to play every situation by ear.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe some days she'll be like, F this, shut up. And the other day you'll be like, this is no big deal. And you're going to have to improv every day.
Some days I just have to put my AirPods in and ignore them.
So I also know that you went on a tour of duty, correct?
Yeah, I was deployed. I went to Kuwait from 2016 to 2017.
So what was that like? I know I asked you a little bit while we were in Qatar together. And I think for people who have never served, it really is like a very foreign experience. So paint us a picture for what it was like for you over there.
So it's a lot different for people that have served, because to me, I'm like, oh, well, I just went to Kuwait. Like, it doesn't seem like a dangerous place. It doesn't seem like, I wasn't in Afghanistan. I wasn't in Iraq, I didn't have people shooting at me every day. We did have a couple bombs go off, but I was safe. And I know that sounds weird, but I didn't have to walk around with a gun. I didn't have to, worry about my surroundings 24/7. It's definitely not like if you were to get deployed to Qatar and you can go off base and you can go, around the town. That's definitely different. So it's hard to explain it if you haven't served. Because, to any civilian, a deployment sounds intense.
But I think I remember you said like on Fridays y'all had lobster, or you had some special meal.
So they did every Friday. Well, every other Friday we had steak and crab legs. Okay. So there were some perks to being. I loved being deployed. It was nice for me. You work, you go to bed. There wasn't, I didn't have to do laundry. We had a laundry service. I didn't have to clean anything. I lived in a tent with 10 other girls, so I had one bunk bed. So, you really had a very basic life. I think I finished the entire series of Vikings at the time. Like, it wasn't hard. It wasn't, it was the most basic work you could do for your job. Like, we did 24-hour ops, but that's all we did. It's just your job.
Anything else you want to share about your time in the Air Force?
I think the biggest thing about it is it just changed my life. I see where some of my friends ended up going down certain paths that if I had stayed home, I could see myself going down the same path. And in a way, I think joining the Air Force saved me.
I so know what you mean. For example, some guys from my high school are currently like in jail or dead. And I really think that for me, like my love of classical music kind of forced me to go to college and put me on a certain path. That wasn't perfect, but it kept me safe, as you were saying. And a previous podcast guest, Morgan Thompson, she was talking about how she had a child when we were both teenagers. She had a child, and she was talking about how her child saved her because it forced her to grow up, and it gave her some rules and regulations for what she was to do and not to do. So I think we all need something to save us in our early 20s, because it's a really crazy time for everybody.
It really is. Seeing where my best friends ended up versus where I ended up, it's just night and day. And the doors that it's opened up for me for my future, it's nothing I can say is going to be negative about joining the military.
Okay, so you joined the military, you had that experience, and that sort of saga in your life more or less finished 4 years ago. And so what was the next big turning point in your life after the Air Force, or perhaps during the Air Force? I'm not sure when it started.
So the next turning point would be my husband, Davon, coming into my life.
And I think he might be right beside you if he wants to make a guest appearance and just poke his head in. Oh, he's drinking wine to help him through.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Yes, he's been over here commenting and trying to make me laugh this whole time.
But and making his faces like only he can do, I'm sure.
Yes. We met in 2018. It was my second duty assignment. So I got stationed in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and Davon was there working as a contractor. And, the Tinder gods had it in for us. Which we always come up with a story if people ask how we met. We're like, oh, we bumped our carts into each other at the grocery store, but
we met in church.
If I'm being honest, it was Tinder.
No, look, okay, I met my better half on Match.com, and I was so judgmental of myself for quite a while about that. And then one of my closest friends, who's like, was in her 70s before she passed away, and bless her soul, she said, Patrick, I totally get it. I'm really judgmental of people that meet online also. And I totally get that. And there was a pause. She's like, by the way, I met my husband on Match.com.
Nice.
So I think we all have to just accept that, look, especially after COVID, it's just the way of the world now. Okay. It
really is.
Just go ahead and log on to one of your friendly neighborhood dating services and get at it.
Exactly. But yes, we met and, obviously hit it off.
Did your heart skip a beat as you saw him across the room?
Our first date, or the first time I met him, first date, it was actually, he took me to the pool at his apartment. And that was where our first date was. We went swimming.
He wanted to see you in the pool.
That's probably what it was. That, or he wanted to see me without any makeup to know if he liked me or not.
He wanted to know what he was getting into.
That's probably what it was. But, let's see, fast forward 5 months, he took me to Joko for the first time, and I met the family. And after that, I was pretty much sold.
Okay, so it was a good experience meeting his mom and everyone.
I loved North Carolina. I thought it was the most amazing thing ever. I remember our first visit, he drove me down Lassiter Road, and I was like, oh my God, this is where I'm going to live.
Okay, so for me and Davon, it's like vanilla ice cream or oxygen. It's just like the way life is. So tell me what, why was it so special driving down Lassiter Road in Fort Oaks, North Carolina?
Because it was just so spacious and green, and the houses weren't close together, and, it was just everything that you pictured a country living vibe to be. It was that. And there was a Dollar General really close.
Okay, I get that. Okay, so y'all met and y'all courted and he brought you home. And then what happened?
We started talking about where our future was going. And with that conversation came Davon proposing.
How did he
Mm.
propose?
Uh, he did a really good job, let me tell you. This man, he thought of everything. So I woke up and he started my day with a scavenger hunt with roses. So I woke up and there was a rose right by my pillow with like a little card that said, go to your closet or something and pick out an outfit because I'm going to take you somewhere. And then, I go to the closet and there's another rose with another card. And, I read that one and I do what it says. And by the end of it, it took me to this winery where we had one of our first dates, and he had the staff waiting out front for me, and they, blindfolded me, and we walked through this like store area into the back, and he had music playing and a photographer, and there was roses everywhere, and it was just more than I thought he was capable of doing. It was so romantic and sweet.
He wanted to make sure you said yes.
He did. So then we got engaged, and he got the job in Maryland, and I was still in the Air Force, so he ended up leaving for a couple months before me, and I stayed until I was done. And then once I was able to get fully out, he drove all the way back and then picked me up, and then we drove off to Maryland. I ended up getting the same job kind of as he did. So we worked for the same company in Maryland. We bought our house.
And then I know in Maryland, y'all basically fixed up the house yourself. Y'all had a little extreme makeover, real life edition.
We did. We really flipped that house. It quickly became everything that we wanted. Like, we had the perfect backyard that we, built this beautiful fence, and we completely redid the kitchen. Everything was exactly how we wanted it to be. It was perfect. And then we got married.
And I wasn't there for the wedding, but me and my aunt Shannon dialed me in through FaceTime, and I remember you walked down the beach to "A Thousand Years" by Christina Perri, and it was a very, very sweet ceremony.
Yeah, it was actually no, I don't think it was that song.
No?
What song was it? It was Luke Combs' Beautiful Crazy.
Okay. Well, maybe
I think
someone
it
else.
sounded like it probably, but I remember I picked that song because Davon always sings it.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for your correction. I heard
Yeah.
something totally different.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but
it was a really nice wedding, and I wish I'd been there.
it it was so much fun.
You were talking about how the Air Force gave you this sense of safety and stability. And now, it's funny, like this wasn't planned at all, but sort of the next step in this model of like self-actualization that Maslow came up with almost 100 years ago is relationships. So, generally after your basic needs are met and you feel like you're safe in life, you want to have like some sort of significant relationship. So you had that with Davon. So how did his presence in your life and y'all meeting and everything, what are some things that you learned from that whole connection and situation?
There is nothing this man has not taught me if it's not patience.
Because he's supposed to be
I
patient with you, or because you have to be patient with him?
both. Both. No, I can't even describe to you how many times we've both tried each other's patience, but he knows how to push my buttons. But no, he's taught me to slow down. He's taught me that I need to understand my worth. He's taught me that I need to stand up for myself, and he has always pushed me to do better, which isn't something that I've consistently had in my life.
Maybe you even have to stand up to him sometimes now also.
I have to stand up to this man daily.
Also maybe you agree with this or don't agree with this, but I found in my relationship, like just having someone be in my life over the course of many years and doing life with someone, just that alone is like a feeling of safety and a feeling of coziness and comfort. And also just knowing, okay, it's not this person loves me unconditionally, because I don't think that really happens with anyone unless they're a parent to a child, but they're going to put up with a lot of shit from me. And like, they're really committed and I matter. I have worth. I have dignity. I'm offering something to someone in the world. It's a really powerful thing to have, I think, in life.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, aside from our son, I think Davin is one of the only people that I can say I love unconditionally. After everything we've been through, he's making faces. After everything we have been through, I think there is, not much else in this world we could go through that we haven't already.
Unless there's anything else that you want to mention around Davin and how that whole saga changed your life, maybe we should talk about the other person you love unconditionally, which is
our son, Caden.
Ooh, Caden.
I actually met Caden for the first time last month, and oh my God, I'm sure he's his own person, but right now he sure does seem like Davin 2.0. I mean, down to the lips, down to the facial expressions,
That's my little
everything.
dude.
And I want to tattle tell on Davin. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see my fingers. So Davin used to drink Yoo-hoo and twist his hair with his finger. And I'm just waiting for Caden to do that one day.
He does it with wine now. He just drinks wine.
But Caden is a ball of energy.
To put it nicely, he's a ball of energy. Yeah. We actually just went to a birthday party with Caden. Actually, we went to two. It was 2 weeks ago, it was a 2-year-old, and then this past weekend it was a 1-year-old. And I completely understand you're not supposed to compare kids, but wow, those children were so calm. And they were so quiet. And then you have my kid running around, screaming, grabbing everything, trying to talk to everyone, offering everyone someone else's stuff. And it's just, how do I get one of the calm ones?
That's funny, because normally I hear parents talking about comparing, like, oh, my child's so smarter than the rest of the kids.
No, mine's just hyper.
Yeah, but he's probably going to be very loved in life. I mean, those kind of people that are so extroverted, they tend to be very rewarded in life for their people skills.
Yeah. And one thing as well, both of those mothers told me that their children wake up all night long. Like the 1-year-old, she said probably 8 to 10 times a night. And I was like, I couldn't even imagine. My son sleeps 12 hours straight.
So he wears you out all day, but then he sleeps well at night at least.
I was like, I don't know what I would want, a really calm kid throughout the day who doesn't sleep at night, or my ball of energy who sleeps really great. I kind of like sleeping, so.
Yeah, pros and cons with everybody. I will say that Caden really got my goat when I was there. I haven't been so mad in a while. I had my first Velveeta macaroni and cheese in about 10 years, and because we don't have it here in Norway, and you had made it for me. I saw it in the cabinet, and I was so excited. And then Caden wanted my macaroni and cheese, and I had to share it with him. And I was a very reluctant sharer with Caden.
But he loved you so much for that few minutes that you were sharing your
He only loved me when I was giving him my macaroni and cheese, or when I was heading out the door and he wanted to go with me.
Yeah. That's pretty much the only time you really get attention from our kid is, if you got food or if you're going somewhere.
But tell us how becoming a mother and all that is Caden changed you.
I know this probably sounds super cliche, but I don't think I knew who I was until I was a mom. Like, the love that you have for this other person is out of this world. Like, I I would put Davon seeds first before my own sometimes, but not the way that I do with Caden. I'm emotional when it comes to him. Like even now I'm starting like he is just what makes me at this point.
And how did that happen? Was it just some sort of instinctual, like bigger than words thing, or can you articulate it at all?
I can't. I mean, honestly, like, because when you're pregnant, you're just like, okay, there's this ball of energy in my stomach. Because let me tell you, he was not a still baby then either. I was like, this sucks. I hate being pregnant. I don't want to do this. There was like a love there, but there wasn't like the attachment. So then we had a very difficult labor, and I don't even remember, really meeting him. I just woke up and he's, we're wheeling down the hallway and there's this baby on me, and I'm like, somebody better take this kid before I drop him. Like it doesn't happen the way, everyone says it does. Like you look at them, like it took me a minute, but going home with him and just, being with him, it happened that way. I think maybe if I would have had an easier labor and I would have actually been able to like comprehend that he came from me and it wasn't just some, random baby, maybe it would have been different, but it definitely.
Because I think you said, did they put you under at the end, or it was over a day that you were pregnant, right? I mean, that you were, sorry, it was over a day. That shows you how much I know. It was over a day that you were getting in labor.
My sarcasm come out really bad.
What did you say?
My sarcasm wanted to come out really bad just then.
No, and deservedly so.
Typically, women are pregnant for more than one day.
How ignorant am I? But you were in labor for a hot minute, right?
Yeah, 36 hours of labor. So it was a long time. And then, nothing was happening after that 36 hours. I was just kind of, they call it stalled, I guess. And they were like, all right, well, got to get him out one way or another. So they decided on the C-section, but, they got him out, and then I started feeling things that you shouldn't be feeling. So they ended up, saying, well, if we give you anything, you're not going to remember meeting your son. I was like, I don't know what you need to give me, but I'm telling you, I feel what they're doing down there, and it's not going to end up well if I keep feeling it. So, yeah, I don't really remember.
Was there one specific moment, maybe a couple of weeks after y'all get home? Was there one special moment where like the bond happened, or was it just a very gradual thing over time?
It was just kind of a gradual thing over time. I mean, just, kind of coming, it took me a while to like get out of the fog of being under and all the sedation and the pain. But once that went away, it was just a very gradual, like intense bond. And the more he needed me, the more I needed him, if that makes sense.
I think so. I mean, I probably have that on like a very microcosm level. Like if my dog Ollie, if he's feeling sad or something, or sometimes I just realize how teeny tiny he is and how he needs my protection or something. And it makes me feel very attached to him. And I'm sure that's only 1% of what, mothers feel for their kids.
Yeah. The moment he says mama, it's like, okay, the world stops. What do you need?
He also said my name while he was there. I just want to give myself credit for that.
He did. He's saying all kinds of stuff. Like it's the past like 3 weeks, this kid's vocabulary has exploded.
What has it been like to see him grow and develop, from a baby to where he is at now? Is he 2 years old or 1.5?
He'll be 1.5 on the 2nd of April.
And so what's it been like to see him develop, and how has that changed you?
He surprises us every single day with how he develops. It's amazing. Like one day he won't be able to do something. And then the next day, without even showing him or telling him, he'll be doing something else. And it's just like, where did that knowledge come from? And how do you know how to do this? And like, where are these skills coming from? It's like the other day, we were in the kitchen and he threw the ball. And I was like, you really just threw the ball. Like, how did you do that? Because last week you weren't throwing the ball. You were just kind of like dropping it. So it's just little things like that. And you're just like amazed at how their tiny little bodies and their tiny little brains work.
Nice. Well, as we talked about the Airforce days, we talked about you and Davon meeting, and we talked about Caden and life as a mom. So should we go to our fun rapid fire section now?
Oh, let's do it. I have to pull up my questions.
Okay, this first one is easy, I think. What is your favorite part of living in Doha?
I think my favorite part would be just the culture here. Like, and it's not just the Qatari culture. There's so many different, people that live here. It's just, you get to experience a lot.
Yeah, it's very international there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's your first question for me?
Okay. What was it like for you growing up in such a small town?
Oh, this is supposed to be rapid fire, Courtney, not like.
I know. I told you I had deeper questions. I didn't do quick ones.
Okay.
You can answer fast.
30 seconds or less. Okay. It was good.
It was good.
I think that I'm still sorting out what growing up in such a small town was like for me, because as you said earlier, it was very safe. There were many good things about it, but at the same time, there was kind of a box that you had to fit in. And I mean, maybe it's like that everywhere, even in Orange County, California, I don't know. But there was a very pretty prescriptive idea of who I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to do. And I really broke the mold. And, I think I'm 35 now, and I'm probably still answering some of the questions that I had when I was 4 years old, which is like, why are other people so confusing to me?
That's fair.
And, it's probably not a coincidence that the podcast is called Becoming Who You Truly Are, when, I grew up in a place that on the one hand allowed me to be very creative and very authentic, but on the other hand, only in certain ways. And the other part of the time I was supposed to like toe the party line and say the right things at church, say the right things around the family. It's a very complicated question, but, many good things, many confusing things, still sorting it out. That's the quick answer. Okay. Second question for you. What has been the best day of your life?
The best day of my life?
Okay. And let's cancel out getting married and having Caden, since those are like the two obvious answers.
Yeah. I'd say my 30th birthday, because that is the day Caden said mama for the very first time. And, Davon did a really great job celebrating my birthday. And, just being with my friends and my sister, it was probably the best day I've had. I'm going to ask you an easier one. Who's your favorite family member?
You, of course.
I'll take that.
No, I don't know. Some people certainly are easier to love than others, aren't they?
They are.
That's my official answer, is that I love everyone in my family equally. They're all equally my favorite, but some of them are easier to love than others.
Are you saying that because most of them are going to watch this? Okay.
I will say that when I was young, there was one aunt that I was especially fond of and one uncle that I was especially fond of. And I think now also, my Uncle Chris, who passed away a few years ago, he was especially good at keeping in touch with me once I left Four Oaks and was in college and wherever I was in the world. So I have to give him extra credit for that he really kind of did more than my other uncles and aunts to keep in touch with me over the years. Okay, Courtney, my next question for you is, you were talking earlier about, being the only girl in a group of guys and, just sort of other groups that can get your goat sometimes. So how do you deal with offensive people when they crop up in your life?
My biggest thing is if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That is something I deal with daily. And except for with my husband, because I see you making those faces at me, I'll say what I feel like to you. But no, I mean, for the most part, if I really don't have anything nice to say back to them, I just won't say anything. If I feel like it deserves a response, I will, give them their own medicine back to them. But for the most part, I just think, maybe they're going through something in their life and that's how they make themselves feel better, or, that's how they cope with situations is, by being that way. And I don't choose to respond offensively to other people.
A good friend of mine once, she told me that also like that when she's around offensive people, that she says that famous line from Jesus when he was on the cross, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." And I started actually practicing that when I'm around people that are saying really dumb stuff and are being really ignorant, and it's actually really helped me.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I have to do too. It's like you can't help what people just don't know, and if they were raised in a situation that makes them ignorant to certain things, then I mean,
we're all ignorant to some things, but some of us are more ignorant than others, I think.
Exactly. Oh, they are. I could tell you some stories when we're not on this podcast.
Okay, what's your next question for me?
What was the first big city that you moved to, and how did you handle the adjustment?
The first place that I moved to after growing up in Four Oaks and Joco was Greensboro. I went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and actually, in a way, that was the biggest culture shock that I ever had because, I lived all over the place after that: Cleveland, Ohio, Louisiana, Houston, Germany, Oslo, and traveled a bit, not living places, but traveling there and stuff. And I think that was the hardest for me because I grew up in such a specific culture. And in many ways, UNC Greensboro was, in the US, we sort of have these two teams, the US can be quite either or in its dichotomy. Like you either believe in God or you don't. You're either conservative or you're liberal. You're either, this or you're that. And whatever side you're on, the other person is the enemy. And it's kind of like I just wanted to go there to get trained as a classical musician and didn't realize that I was going to have pretty much everything that I was raised to believe questioned, especially in that first year, and that I was going to say some things that offended other people. There were some things that I had to learn about, like other people's perspectives, and that we don't all come from Joco. That, other people have different things that they were taught by their families, by their religions or lack thereof. And that was a really, really expansive year for me. It was also probably in some ways the most painful year of my life because I made so many mistakes. So that was probably the most difficult move that I ever made. Dang, Courtney, you're asking good questions.
I thought about these really hard.
Oh, I'm feeling so guilty because I didn't. I was just like, okay, like just something kind of fluffy duffy that'll make a good YouTube short, okay, my next question for you was like, what Harry Potter house would you say that you're part of?
Oh, see, that's a good question. That's fun. I would be Gryffindor, I think.
Gryffindor? Why Gryffindor? Yeah. I would peg you as a Hufflepuff. Why Gryffindor?
I feel like Hufflepuff is too optimistic. I feel like they're very outgoing, happy, and I feel like, I don't know, Gryffindor is more what?
Leadership.
Oh, more leaders. I don't know if I'm really a leader either. I'm definitely not a follower, but I don't know if I'm a leader. I think I go to my own path sometimes.
I think that's Gryffindorish.
Here's a good one. What restaurants do you miss the most from back home?
I'm vegetarian now. I don't eat meat anymore, but man, I miss those hole in the wall seafood restaurants in Surf City, North Carolina from my childhood, where you just would go and get a platter of fried shrimp and French fries and coleslaw and hush puppies and tartar sauce and just, there's something magical about that fried platter. And also, again, like it's a meat thing, which I don't do anymore. But I think this weekend is the fire department barbecue sale in Four Oaks. So my brother and my dad, they're on the volunteer fire department. Yeah, Courtney's making a face. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, they cook hogs in the ground on hickory logs for like 3 or 4 days. And then there's probably 50 or 60 hogs that they cook and like probably 10,000 hush puppies. And everyone goes and you have North Carolina vinegar-based barbecue where they chop up the hog and then they pour this vinegar-based barbecue thing on it. All the old ladies bring homemade desserts, hush puppies, coleslaw. Yeah.
Fun fact, I had no idea what a hush puppy was until Davon.
Actually, I was going to ask you, what was life like for a California girl marrying into a North Carolina family? So that was one answer, but give us another one.
And I still haven't tried, so don't tell anyone back home. I have not tried greens.
Like collard greens?
Yes. Davon's making faces at me.
I've never eaten collard greens either because I just can't get past the smell.
I can't get past the way they look. I don't know. And your mom made her Brussels sprouts, and she said if I don't like those ones, then I'm never gonna like them, and I just don't like them. I cannot do Brussels sprouts.
I never tried collards and I never tried chitlins, so maybe I got a little bit of California in me.
You know what else I've never tried? Chicken pastry.
Oh, now that's a war crime right there. Okay, that's just wrong.
Davon about jumped on his chair. I've never tried it.
Well, unfortunately for you,
every time we go, I just never get it. I don't know. I just don't. I mean,
unfortunately for you, both of me and Davon's grandmas have passed away, or at least the ones that we have in common. But they both made the best chicken pastry. So
yeah, like every holiday, I would fill up on everything else, and I don't never get it.
Shall we do one more rapid fire and then we can move on?
Yeah. Let's see.
You're a Satanist.
I'll do one more big one. This is actually a Davon question.
Okay. We're going to have to get Davon to come onto the podcast next time.
He might need a couple glasses of wine.
That's fine.
All right. How has traveling the world opened your eyes to life?
Oh, my God. Again, Courtney.
I know.
This would be a short answer question. That could be a whole podcast episode.
In 30 seconds.
The common threads throughout like human nature and just what it means to be human. And I don't have my top 10 ways or anything ready to go, but I mean, we all like eating food with family, for example. Okay. Like that seems very basic, but when you experience it in so many different special ways, like eating with you guys in Qatar or sitting in an ashram in India, eating off a banana leaf or eating at the, fire department fundraiser in North Carolina, and 100 other ways, that it becomes something much deeper than just like, oh, I'm eating a meal. You realize, okay, like every human being does this. And there are many other examples of that.
No, I think that's perfect. That's a perfect way to sum up that.
Davon, be my pitch hitter. Is there a question that you'd like to ask your wife that I can ask on your behalf?
He's got a mouthful of chips. So give him 2 seconds.
How is your husband so great? How is he so amazing? How is your husband the most amazing man in the world?
No, Davon, you're fired. Courtney, what is your favorite song ever and why?
Oh, gosh. My favorite song ever is probably Thunder Rolls by Garth Brooks. And it is because it is what got me into country music.
But that's also ironic because you're like the peacemaker and that song's about killing somebody.
Maybe that's why.
Maybe you're able to unleash your secret, like your secret dark side or something through that song.
Yeah. No, but that's what got me into country music. I will never forget listening to that song in my dad's gray truck, going back and forth to my mom's. I loved that song. And that will probably always be like my country music song.
Great. So, okay, let's go to the final section in this episode, which is the Becoming Who You Truly Are segment. So I've been asking these three questions to every guest in this first season, and I'd love to hear your take on them. So first of all, Courtney, what does it mean for a person to become who they truly are?
I feel like that's a hard one to answer because I feel like you're always changing and evolving who you really are. Like if you would have asked me this 10 years ago, I never would have said, well, now I'm who I am because I'm a mom. I never would have said that 10 years ago. So I feel like if you ask me this question in 10 years, it's going to be different. But as of right now, what does it mean to be who I really am? I guess just being a really good mom and a really good wife and working hard at what I do and, making a life for where we're at. And I don't know. It's a hard question to answer.
But I like that. Sometimes the best answers are just simple because actually what you just mentioned, none of those things, they sound easy, but none of them are easy. So I think that's a great answer. Okay, question number 2. At this point in your life, do you feel settled in and like, you're who you were meant to be? Or do you think there's still work to do? And if so, what might that work be?
I feel completely settled at where I am right now. Like, I feel like I'm a really good mom. I feel like I'm a really good wife. I feel like I balance work and home. I feel like I've accomplished everything that I personally wanted to accomplish up until this point in my life. I could say yes to that.
I love that because every other guest so far, I say that like there's been 50, there's been 5 or so, but everyone else has been like, no, I still have work to do on myself. And I've been waiting for someone to just be like, yes, I'm settled. I feel confident in who I am. So I love it. Mm-hmm. And what are the things you do to make yourself feel like alive, authentic, connected to yourself? Like, what are the positive, like self-affirming things that you do in your life?
I think the biggest one, this might be a weird answer, but I do therapy.
That's not weird at all.
Well, I don't know if that's a weird answer because, I don't know. But, therapy, it helps me. It helps me so much. It helps me realize where I go wrong, and it helps me realize, in ways that I can improve, and she helps me see different sides of everything, especially when it comes to Davon. Like, we're obviously very different, so having someone else's perspective helps me in that sense.
No, that's a great answer. I think maybe some people do think that going to therapy is weird or something, but I've been before, and for me, it feels like a shower for my soul. Like it just, like an exhale. It feels really nice like after.
I go in one person and I come out another person. It's just like the weight that comes off of you after it. It makes a huge difference for how I feel about myself.
Yeah. And what I found is sometimes like there are big things like, okay, values clarification or, like the big things. But I think sometimes what I got most out of therapy was actually like some very, very tiny little thing that actually wasn't so tiny. Like, okay, for example, like in 2020, like I'm getting so upset by the news. What do I do with this? Well, actually, by taking that one little topic and having like learning skills for that, I learned how to have more peace in other parts of my life. So yeah, I think exactly. That's a great answer. And okay, final question I have for you. Do you have any tips for those who might be listening to the podcast on how they might grow into a happier life? For example, any books or podcasts or skills that you've learned? Enlighten us, Courtney.
I don't know about books or podcasts, but I mean, just in general, I feel like people are so offended these days and they let it weigh on them so much. And honestly, if you can't change it or do anything about it, if it's not going to affect you, like, be passionate about it, but don't let it bring you down. Like, there's so many people that just get so worked up about everything in the news, and like, why? Like, go home and be with your family, or go home and be with your animals, or go home and just cook yourself a good dinner. Like, don't obsess over things that you can't control and things that you can't change. And if something offends you, then don't listen to it and don't watch it, and find something that doesn't offend you and just be happy.
There is so much that I want to say in response to that. And there are at least 3 people that I thought of while you were talking that I wanted to send that little soundbite to. But I'm just going to just keep my mouth shut and say that was perfect. And thank you so much. And yes, you get the Nobel Prize for 2024 for what you just said.
Thanks.
So, Courtney, unless you have anything else, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Do you have any final thoughts or words that you want to share with all of us before we end?
I'm just disappointed that Caden's asleep and can't come say hi to you.
That's okay, because actually, for the audience, we are doing a series on my trip to Doha, and Caden has quite a bit of airtime. So if you want to see perhaps the cutest baby in the world, you can go to the Doha, Qatar videos on the channel and check him out.
Yes, they're really good.
So thanks so much, Courtney, for doing this. And thanks, Davon, for being in the background. And I'm going to get you on one of these days. And it's really been a pleasure. I know y'all are both busy, so thanks for doing this and making time.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
That's it for this week's podcast. If you'd like to support the channel, you can go to patreon.com/PatrickAAParker. And while supplies last, I'll send you a free Audible version of my book, Becoming Who You Truly Are, with your subscription. Thanks for watching and listening. And until the next episode, I wish you nothing but the best on your life's journey to becoming all that you truly are.